Hello, everybody. Welcome back for another episode of Teamfight Talkshow. Today, Frodan. I was gonna say my name is Frodan, which is really appropriate, but we're not joined by Doa. We have a special guest in That's Admirable, as Doa is traveling in Korea and needs a little bit of time to get everything sorted before he can join us again. But of course, our special guest is also Robinsongz, the winner of the North American Regionals this past weekend. So let's go ahead and check in with both of them. First, we'll start off with Nathan. He is our guest and our host. So how you doing, Nathan? How was your weekend?
I'm doing fantastic. It was my weekend was awesome. I got to cast TFT from a studio, which was just unbelievable to me. I just couldn't believe how much different it felt being inside of a studio versus, casting in a position where you just rely on co-casters there. And Dan, you were there. You know how it went. It was pretty fantastic. I
Yeah,
was kind of hoping that we could hear from Robin and how he went because I know his weekend was really tough.
yeah. Robin, how's life?
Great. Still really happy that I won regionals. Past 2 days I've been doing absolutely nothing, just laying in bed watching Netflix. Just like because I had a
Yes.
tough, not tough, but like mental like training or grinding for like a month. And then that tournament was like pretty like it took a toll on my mental and it's glad to like take 2 days off to do absolutely nothing. But I'm ready to start playing TFT again.
Really, just after like a day and a half. You can
Yes,
take a little bit more time. It's totally fine if you want to take like
I'm
one or two
itching
more
to
days.
play TFT.
Oh,
That's
I
good.
see. This man's an addict. Robin, let's talk a little bit. Actually, real quick, what shows are you watching on Netflix? Is there anything that you'd recommend?
Oh, I've been watching. Oh, well, I just finished Dave on Hulu. It talks about it's by the rapper Lil Dicky. And it's really funny. It's like a comedy slash like drama. So that's really good. Um, I just watched Vacation Friends. It's a movie on Hulu with John Cena. That one's really funny.
You're just
Uh,
picking every meme human that they're
yeah,
making stuff about. All right.
yeah. That was like surprisingly like good. That one was surprisingly good. Me and my girlfriend started watching Handmaid's Tale. I think it's also on Hulu,
Oh,
but that one was like kind of disturbing. We watched the first episode. We're like, oh, we'll get back to that.
it's a very
Yeah,
depressing show.
it's really
Yeah,
I
and
real
then
would
serious.
not recommend
we
for the
started
faint of
watching
heart.
Clickbait on Netflix. I think it's like trending number
Okay.
one. It's pretty good. But that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. So finally, you name a Netflix show. You say you watched a lot of Netflix, and you
Yeah.
named all these Hulu shows. All
Yeah.
right.
What I meant by that's just like streaming services. Yeah.
Well,
All
well,
right. All right.
watching. I feel like watching streams is starting to be like where you Google something, you Netflixed it.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
it feels like.
Yeah.
Like remember
All right.
Xerox?
All right. All right. Don't ask me what I've been watching. Just been watching trash reality TV shows while I pass the time. Um,
90 Day Fiance.
no, no. I was watching Bachelor in Paradise lately. So
Oh, okay.
it's a nice little people watching experiment, but it's actually not too different than watching TFT tournaments. But I digress. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how regionals was as an experience for Robin. We'll do this as part of our intro just to interview him. So the first thing that I think is a lot of people's mind is the preparation. We asked you about this in the winning interview, but can you go a little bit more in depth as to what changed? Because you did play in regionals before, and you're kind of talking about how you really want to do well in this one because it would feel bad to play in multiple regionals not do well. So like, can you walk through the process of like what you did before to prepare, and then what you actually do now that helped you a lot going into Set 5?
Um, I would say there's not that big of a difference. I just played a lot more, I would say. I said this in another interview I did. I think the best way to prep for a tournament is like you just have to spam infinite games because there's certain situations that only come up like one in every 100 games that you can't really practice for anywhere else. So you have to like get into that situation. And then when you're in that situation, you can practice for it. So next time if it ever comes up in the tournament, you'll be ready for it. Like there's literally like infinite like routes you can take, right? Infinite branches in the beginning, infinite different comps, different itemizations, and you're not going to be able to practice. Like you can practice like the fundamentals, but like the specific scenarios and stuff, you just have to spam games and hope it comes up in your games, and then you can be prepared for it in the tourney. So yeah, I would say like this set versus a previous sets because I'm full time now, so it's easier for me to play more games. But I definitely played a lot more. I think set three I was still like part time, so I didn't play as much. Set four, I forgot if I was still working or not, but I definitely wasn't signed to Team Liquid, I think. So I I just played a lot more this set, I would say. So that's the difference.
Mm.
And I would recommend if anyone's prepping for a tournament, just play a ton. Review VODs. Oh yeah, I like reviewed a bunch of people's VODs. I just put it at 2x. And then literally you can just you don't have to watch the whole VOD. You skip to the major decision points, right? You skip to like 1-4 if they pre-level. You skip to 3-2 if they roll at 6. You go to 4-1 if they roll at 7. You go to 4-5 if they fast 8. 5-1 if they roll at 8. Radiant item selection. Besides that, like what they're getting in the shop and also what radiant item they're getting, it's gonna be pretty similar, like amongst all the top players. So yeah, that was also helpful.
What do you feel like the biggest change that you saw when you started like playing a ton, and then kind of reviewing your stuff afterwards? Like, what do you feel like the biggest impact that you had on certain situations was? Was there anything that you noticed in particular was like, oh my gosh, and it was just such a major change afterwards?
I would say just like because I spammed so many games, I realized what my comfort comps were, and I leaned towards those comps and I mastered those comps. Those comps being Jax and Lucian, and potentially Draven if I didn't hit anything else. So grinding games on solo queue allowed me to like know the ins and outs of those comps. Whether I should be playing for top 4 or top 2 at what situations. How much to roll at 3-2, how much to roll at 4-1. Itemization options, and stuff like that. Another thing was like I picked people's brains before the tourney. So I asked so I don't know if you guys know like Changa from OCE. I saw him that he only spammed AP comps. He only played Vel'Koz and like stuff like that in OCE regionals. So I wanted to pick his brain for any Vel'Koz tips. So I messaged him. I was like, "You got any Vel'Koz tips for me?" And he gave them to me. And he also gave me some tips about MF Cav reroll. And then I ended up playing MF Cav reroll in one of the games. So that actually helped me a lot because you never know like what like I said, you never know what situation you're gonna be put in. So I also picked the brains of like Levdi. Talked to him about like he told me like Aphelios is pretty bad right now and Draven's pretty bad as well. So he doesn't even touch those units. He told me how he played, like how he like maneuvered Varus into Kale, and I happened to do that like the last game of regionals. So I also talked to him about like like any tips on like Lucian positioning or against Lucian, and he gave me some ideas. And yeah, and then I think it translated to regionals.
That's good. When it came to like day 1 versus day 2, everyone knows, of course, your day 2 performance. Day 1, you barely squeezed through. It came down to the very last game.
Yeah.
I mean, were you like ever like thrown off or sweaty or nervous, or did you not even really like notice that? You're just like, I'm just gonna play a good game, and it didn't matter.
Oh, dude, the first day, I played like 2 or 3 games of Aphelios because I didn't want to, but I was forced to slam Guinsoo's. And then like just like you can't play Jax anymore, right? Probably you're leaning more towards Aphelios and Lucian. And I think whenever I lean towards Aphelios, like I do bad. I don't like playing Aphelios. It's like a high roll comp. I can play Aphelios if I can roll at 8, but if I have to roll at 7, I'm just gonna like it's not gonna be a good placement for me. So I played a lot of I ended up playing a lot of Aphelios, and there was another thing like I knew. So I wanted to go chain start. I'm very very comfortable with chain opener, because I think chain opener is super good for Lucian and Jax because they're so item flexible. And getting like the really, really strong defensive items in the beginning is a really good strat. But Bertosaurus also starts chain. So like, and also I don't know how he beat me at Carousel every time with his like he plays on like a $10 like computer or something, and like he lags, but he beat me every time. So I couldn't get chain vest. So I had to change my plan. So I went for like bow, I think. And then if you go for bow, you're very likely to slam Guinsoo's, right? So yeah. I think that was like a little like handicap I had day 1. And then I was super nervous going to the last game because in the last game, I was actually really, really far behind and I needed to get a top 4, maybe top 3 or top 2 to make it to the next day. And I don't know if you guys saw the last game. I started the game at 40 HP at stage 3-2. Like I got like
5-0. You hit Stinny so fast.
Yeah, I got 5-0, 4-0, 5-0, 5-0, like 4-0, like stage 2. And I was like, oh my god, like this game is over. Like I was like kind of nervous. But then I stuck to my plan of like if I have a bad opener, I'll play open 4 Vel'Koz Draconic, and that's what I did. I hit really hard at 3-2, which saved my game honestly, and I also hit really hard at 4-1. And I ended up like with some good positioning, I ended up clutching out a 3rd, which barely inched me away. So that game I was definitely nervous, but I'm glad I clutched it out. But then come day 2, I think I was able to get chain opener, chain vest. Like, actually, I don't even know if I got chain vest, but I went for chain vest. I also went for cloak. That was a different strat because
Really?
yes, because
Alright.
if you like to play, if you want to play Jax, cloak is actually a really good opener because cloak can be BT, Runons, or gargoyle. So you have three. You actually have 3 outs. Stage 2 for cloak.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I think Levdi even told me that. Levdi was like, "Oh, if you want to play Jax, like Cloak is a pretty good opener, actually." So I actually went for Cloak, like I think 2 or 3 out of my games in regionals, and it actually worked out really well because I was able to make BT or Runon's early game, and it was super good, or like an early Gargoyle. So I think Cloak is actually like low key OP, not OP, but like underrated for sure. Um,
Wow.
so I guess like it's just a change of my game plan, honestly,
This
and
is like
realizing like what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are from day 1.
this is like the Riot goal accomplished. They wanted to make Cloak more playable. And then
Yeah,
look what they did. Robin
yeah.
with some cloaks, 5 firsts on second day. Perfect.
It's true because some players they view cloak as an item that they want to like kill as fast as possible, right? So they will slam anything because like they realize that cloak isn't key to their game plan. So this is really good meaty stuff, and we'll pick up regional discussion a little bit more later on the show. But we want to move on to some news, and we'll talk about some stuff like in regionals. I want to hear Robin's assessment of other players play, you know, like Soju and Milk and all them. So we'll talk about that later on the show. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the news. There's not that many items, but the one that's on people's mind is the patch that's coming out tomorrow. We finalized the patch notes. So there's going to be a little bit of buffs, some adjustments to transfer power from away from Ivern in terms of what's too strong and also compensating with HP. And then some nerfs across the board to some pretty bad offenders. So in terms of the actual patch notes, let's go ahead and just have Nathan take the first stab here. Is there anything that catches your eye that you want to call out here?
The thing that mostly caught my eye was just like the way that they're like making a pretty aggressive change to try and balance out like, the way the heroes feel like they're functioning. Like Jax feels like to me that it's taken a pretty significant hit here. Like the 1-star Jax is just not even close to the same anymore. It's dipped by 33% of what its original spot was on the attack speed bonus, and then it's like that's just such a drastic change. Like the 1-star Jax was so powerful, and I feel like it's one of the reasons why the Jax comps was so good was because you could sit on a 1-star Jax for a very long time. And so to me, that feels like the one that's most likely to have the actual most impact. Like you're going to have to be a lot more aggressive when you're rolling with Jax in this regard.
Okay. I do want to know, by the way, that a couple of things didn't make it to this graphic because they did some last minute changes. For example, Draven's getting buffed, so his attack damage is buffed. Draven 2 and 3 stars getting buffed, probably by a decent amount as well. And a couple of changes that Mordot was tweeting about. Rob, is there anything that you're particularly excited? Because I mean, you're the one that still has to keep playing TFT pretty competitively here going to Worlds.
Okay, Mordog, I'm very sad that you nerfed Lucian and Jax and Galio, my 3 favorite champions. You nerfed me. No, I'm just kidding. But like, yeah, I do agree with these nerfs. I think Jax and Lucian are like pretty busted, especially Galio. That unit is not balanced. But I think these nerfs are pretty good. A Volibear nerf, I think it's good. It makes items like Locket and like Skirmishers better, right? So he doesn't kill shields. KO nerf, deserved. Like KO2 is an insta first, honestly, if you have the board for it. BT also pretty broken, so that nerf is good. Radiant Stoneplate item is also broken, so that's good. The 2 buffs, Locket and Static, are really good as well because they're underused. Ivern got adjusted. I think he got like less CC, more AD, which I think is pretty good because Ivern's so annoying to deal with, right? And it's not shown here, but Draven buff is really good because Draven's like just like so close to being like good, like he's just he's so close to being like in meta. Like he's pretty good. He's actually pretty good. Like he's not even that bad, but like he's very close to being like you'll see one like in every game, So with the Jackson Lucian nerfs, I think Draven will be playable, hopefully. But yeah, pretty good patch overall, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like, they don't want to change too many big things at this point. They want to kind of have like basically how the champions are designed. They're not going to like rework anything pretty dramatically, I feel, after this. But the biggest significant change is the fact that Volibear is no longer destroying shields, in my opinion, because that changes a little bit of how you're viewing the late game. And then we'll see whether or not these buffs. I don't know. I still feel like I wouldn't necessarily want to pick Static Shiv nearly as much, but 70% MR shred is like a really big deal. So I don't know. Maybe that ends up being like a pretty good pick, and then you play Teemo again or something. So yeah, we'll check in and see how that patch is. Probably by next show we'll have like a good idea of whether this patch was good, but we'll see how it actually affects the players. Most players are probably gonna take a break. But in the meantime, there's some also interesting things happening in TFT in China. So China has been working with Tencent to make a TFT like third-party inspired client. It's not like official TFT, but it basically is TFT over there in China. And it has things like a mode where you can play classic TFT set 1. You can play duo mode 2v2v2v2, and you can also play puzzles, which I think has been very fun for people who want to download it, because it basically, if you play like Labs and Runeterra, for example, it basically sets you up in a scenario and you have to figure out how to win that board, and they give you some components and some situations with the champions. This is all to say that there's a lot of really interesting room for game development here in TFT. And I think it's gotten a lot of people in the West very jealous. They're like, why can't we have this? Rob, did you get a chance to check this out at all?
I have not gotten a chance to play it at all, but I've heard about it. It seems super cool, and I'm so excited that TFT, there's like so much room to improve, right? Like there's so many things you can do with TFT, especially the puzzle mode. Like that seems pretty interesting, even though like some people it might sound like bedge on paper, but I'm pretty sure it's like super fun. And then being able to go back to the previous sets is really, really cool as well. Dual mode, 2v2 mode, maybe a 4v4 mode as well. Like, dude, TFT has so much
potential.
Potential. Yeah. TFT has so much potential. I'm super excited.
Yeah. We're kind of like fortune ramping, We're like sacking a couple like years, and then like eventually the payout's gonna be so big once we cash out.
Yeah.
And if it's a bad set, if set 6 sucks, if set 6 is like terrible, it's because we're going for a bigger payout. We're going for a bigger cash out on set 7.
12 lost.
Yeah.
Set 13 will be awesome.
Set 13.
Yeah.
What on earth? I just love this idea of like seeing the classic set here. Like Dan has heard me talk more about games that are just so old and hideous that it's almost impossible for me to figure out a way to describe it. But like, I'm just putting this one out there. I've been playing Magic my whole life, and one of my favorite formats in that one is called 93-94. And the reference on that one is the years 1993 and 1994. And the format is you can only play cards from 1993 and 1994. And you can't like pick a reprint from like 1997 and play with it. No, the card had to be created in 1993 or 1994. These nostalgia modes, these are like some of my favorite things. And set 1, this is like where I fell in love with TFT. I played Ninja Elementals every single game for like 7 hours a day. And that was all I did. And I was just like, I just love Z3. I'm going to try every combination of items I can even think of that could be possibly viable on a Z3. And the idea that I can go back and play that, to me, is just, it's such an appealing notion, because you just can't, if you live in the United States, or basically not China with the way that this is being created right now, you just can't do that. There's no way to revisit the Z3. And honestly, like, just hearing that this is a possibility, that warms my heart.
You can. There's a tutorial that someone put out where you can download this and figure out a way to try it yourselves. But either way, what the most exciting thing that I heard about this was that apparently the TFT design team, the dev team, actually helped build out certain aspects of this mode. So it's possible that it could be a hint of things to come. We'll see. We'll see. I don't want to talk a little bit too much more to get people's hopes up, because obviously nothing has been said officially about it. We do want to have one other piece of news that came up last week that I think is interesting for discussion. It's not necessarily about the news itself, but the news is, quote, Bebe just quitted TFT. The discussion was Bebe apparently did a post on his YouTube channel saying that he started TFT because he thought it was competitive, and if he tried hard enough that he can get advantage over other pro gamers. But he talked to a TFT game developer who told Bebe a few months back that it's not going to happen. This is what Bebe is claiming. and that's not the direction that they embrace the RNG, and therefore they're not interested in making competitive like other esport games. In this thread, people like Mortdog ended up chiming in and saying his piece, saying like he's been in meetings talking about the next 3 years, that they see competitive being a core piece. So, of course, this is just what Bebe is saying, and then other people are chiming in. I kind of want to hear thoughts specifically from Robin, because I thought this was really interesting, given that Robin is a player that is being used as an example to talk about how you can mitigate and control RNG if the conditions line up. And I kind of want to hear Robin's thoughts about this. So, Robin, you have the floor.
I don't really agree with this. Like, I feel like there is RNG, but there's also a lot of skill. It's about like in NA, like last set, Sox was the best player by far, right? And he made it. Set 3, set 4. Sox, I think, in my opinion, was the best player by far, and he made it both sets. So like, I don't think that was I don't think he got lucky. Like I think I watched his VODs. He wasn't really the luckiest player, but he understood the game more so than every other player. I'm not saying Baby is a bad player, but he must be doing something wrong for having like all these poor performances. I don't think he can blame it all on RNG, to be honest. Maybe he's getting a little bit nervous, or maybe his playstyle doesn't really benefit playing against other high elo players. Because I watched Bebe, like his playstyle, he's super like not greedy, right? He often like he levels up in weird intervals and doesn't really care about econ, but then he will never get punished in solo queue. But if you play against other good players, you will get punished, and if you get punished, that's like 2 or 3 placements down. So I feel like it's his playstyle that's like not tournament favored. But I could be wrong because I didn't watch his VOD, so I don't know how unlucky he got. But you know, he's consistently rank 1, so he is a good player. I think he's just like missing something in tourney play, I think. I think TFT, people say like, oh, TFT competitive, Keck W, but like, no, I actually think it's like, there's a lot of other games that require RNG, right? Like poker. Poker's a lot of skill as well, right? But there's also RNG involved, like Hearthstone. Isn't Hearthstone like some RNG as well?
A
Like,
little bit, yeah.
What cards you draw and stuff. There's also there is a lot of skill expression for sure, and I think TFT also has a lot of skill expression. So it's sad that he quit, but I don't really agree with this take.
The thing that gets me is that Bebe is like quitting, citing that he kind of wants, you know, the edge and also like to kind of have pro gaming turn like his game into like an esports similar to StarCraft or League of Legends, and he's playing Pokemon Unite, and I don't really know about Pokemon Unite current state of competition, but I do know a thing or two about Nintendo and how they run esports. So I wish Bebe the best of luck. I just don't know if he's gonna get what he's looking for with a Nintendo game. But hey, maybe Nintendo can turn over a new leaf. And Baby's done a lot to help grow like the Korea/Western bridge, right? Like his fluency in English and Korean and streaming is just some of the most impressive streaming I've ever seen, especially to play TFT at a high level in a game where you only have 30 seconds to execute everything. So I always enjoyed watching his stream, and I wish him the best of luck. Nathan, any closing thoughts here before we move on to Agree?
Yeah, it is sad to see him walk away, just because I do think he was very good, but I do think that adaptation was really like the thing that was missing here. You know, I learned a lot watching Bebe, and specifically I took a lot of watching Bebe and applied it to set 5. Like when I got into this, I was like, I'm diving really deep into set 5, and like I'm just going full all in. And it's just there are times that what he did I felt like was a stroke of brilliance. And there were other times where I'm like, this just feels like suicide in this lobby, where it doesn't feel like if you don't succeed at any step during this process, you're just going to get crippled by it. It's like Robin said, if something gets countered, you're like, it's like 2 or 3 placements down. That is genuinely what it felt like, because I was just straight up emulating what I was seeing from Bebe pretty much the entirety of the time. And granted, I don't have the same understanding, but I was pretty much doing the exact same thing every single game. And then when I kind of learned that there were certain points where I was like, yeah, I definitely should be doing that here, and there were other points where it's like, I definitely should not be doing that here, it just, Bebe never changed. It was just always the exact same thing every single time. It was very aggressive and trying to just outright win streak your lobby, and then you either hit your stuff and you won the lobby, or you didn't and you slow bled to top 4. Like that felt like the main strategy here. So I feel like adaptation was really the big key on that one as well. But it's just sad to see him go, because what you said was perfect too. He just did so much on the like both sides of it, streaming in Korean and in English, and he was so quick and so decisive and so articulate that it's sad to see it go.
Yeah, well, one person in chat says that apparently he was flaming NA and EU in Korean to his viewers. That's okay. We do that a lot to every other region, so I think it's fine. Let's go ahead and move on to Agree. This is the segment where we put out a statement. Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it lukewarm? It's a take, regardless, with some temperature assigned to it. And we ask the panel to agree or disagree. So the first one starts off from a Reddit thread that we saw, which is talking about set 5.5, and the title is what we're quoting verbatim. Set 5.5 is the most skill expressive the game has ever been. Let's start off with our guest, Robinsongz.
I disagree. I think set 4 was. I think Chosen was way more skill expressive. So I think Socks said it in his stream. He said he thinks Chosen is most skill expressive because, okay, without Chosen, not like almost all the top players early game stage 2 is gonna be exactly the same. So stage 2 comes down to mostly luck. I feel like you don't make any decisions because you don't really roll. But starting from stage 3, you start to roll and make some decisions, right? But in set 4 during Chosen, like not everyone has the same early game depending on what Chosen you get. So it's more skill expressive. Everyone's taking different routes from the beginning. Whereas now you get like Olaf 2. Okay, I'm playing Sentinel Skirms. You know, like, and everyone's gonna pick up the Aurelia or like or the Senna and stuff like that. So it's very, very. I mean, compared to Chosen, I think it's less skill expressive. So that's why I disagree with this. I think set 4 Chosen was probably a little bit more skill expressive with the early mid game. Also, like, yeah, Sock said that with Chosen being around, it's way easier to transition your board. So right now, like, if I'm committed to playing, like, you know, if I have 4 knights on my board, I'm playing Jax or like Lucian, right? There's no way I can pivot into like A-Bomb Vel'Koz or like Aphelios. It's kind of, I mean, you could do the Aphelios to some extent, but it's kind of hard. Whereas like Chosen, you can get like you can be wanting to play Jax and you roll down for a Chosen Aphelios and you can pivot to Aphelios really easily because you have the Aphelios 2 already. So that requires more skill, pivoting the whole board into Aphelios. So I disagree.
Okay. I see a lot of discussion in chat. Some people say the end of set 5 was even more skill expressive. That's a real big hot take, given the prominence of shadow items and vertical comp synergies. But that's neither here nor there. Nathan, what do you think about this statement?
I also disagree with it. I was very big on Chosen. I think Chosen opened up possibilities in the game that you're just not going to get outside of having Chosen unless you do something that emulates the Chosen effect, I guess. I do think that set 5.5 is probably requires you to have the most well-rounded, though. Like, it kind of requires you to use everything in some regard. And it's kind of difficult because you have to notice the times you're supposed to be using them. Like, earlier when I asked Robin, what do you think the biggest difference was when you started playing a ton versus playing a lot? And the answer was basically everything. Everything felt like it got a lot stronger, and it was all very important. I think that's just how set 5.5 is. It requires you to have a lot of well-rounded stuff for everything. But I think that I definitely agree that set 4 with Chosen was just, I think, more skill expressive just because there was so much going on. Like, to sell your Chosen unit was difficult. Like, to buy a Chosen unit was kind of difficult. There were so many things that were happening, and it requires you to just see so many different angles of stuff that were going on. Like, I think that set 5.5 requires you to have more rounded skills, but not more skill expressive now.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit hard to kind of definitively say if it's the most skill expressive. I would say it's one of for sure. And I would say that right now, people, it's just okay. If I can take a step back and just talk about how freaking hilarious it is that the TFT community remembers Chosen so fondly, because while it was happening, y'all couldn't stop complaining about Chosen. Like every single week, everyone just kept saying, remove Chosen from the game. It was the worst thing that could ever happen. I can't believe I pre-level and hit Sever Chosen. All of a sudden, GG. You know, all this. It's just, you guys are just so impossible. But that's neither here nor there. That's not part of the question. I find it freaking hilarious.
Doesn't suck.
Is it the most expressive skill the game has ever been? Probably not, but I would say it's very high up there. I think these past couple patches in particular have been very good because I think the AD flex is particularly super interesting. It's just that the rest outside of that, like AP in particular or any like reroll positions, are a little bit too narrow and not flexible enough. So I'd love a little bit more of that. But I would agree that parts of like when Dusk was was balanced and not like too oppressive, but like still on the strong side. And there's like a lot of really cool things that you can do with Chosen in that part of set 4. And parts of set 4.5 by the end was also very good. I liked it. Although I do think Slayers was a little bit overrated in terms of being a cool tree to play. I think it was kind of boring in the end. And also, this is not to confuse fun with skill expressive. I think a lot of you keeps talking about skill expressive when really what it was just fun to you and vice versa. So let's not get that mixed up. That being said, I think we're all in unison. Disagree, but there's still time. I think there is high skill expression right now in the game for sure.
Look, if NA wins Worlds, then we know that this was the most skill expressive set. If NA doesn't win Worlds, then we just definitely know it wasn't. That's just the way it boils down, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Easy.
All right. Well, that was a good one. I think it got the chat all fired up. I don't know. We might have peaked early, like North American most esports until now. Let's go into number 2. NA Regionals was the highest level play in any TFT tournament thus far. Let's go with Nathan to start things off here, and then we'll let Robin go second.
Look, we hit like one of the most historical performances that like will ever be hit in Teamfight Tactics. It's just so unlikely to happen again. I actually wrote down a quote from Doa. When Robin hit the 3rd win in a row, I asked Doa, I go, do you think 6 is possible? I think it's possible. And Doa he goes, it's not, no one's ever going to win 6 in a row. Like it pretty decisively so. And again, it's almost, it's so close to impossible to do. It feels like anyway. And then I saw Robin go the MF build, finish 5th. And I was like, that kind of sucked. And then it was 2 more firsts in a row after that. 5 firsts out of 6 lobbies on day 2 of the event. It's just like my mind was exploded. I couldn't believe what I was watching. It's just unbelievable. I don't feel like I've ever seen a performance quite this dominant in basically anything I've ever seen. And I've watched competitions my whole life of sports, of games, just you name it. I've watched some useless competitions, even in real life. I've watched my friends play tiddlywinks against each other for a bunch of money. But the thing about it is that this performance was just unbelievable and it's historic. And I think in 10 years, it would be unlikely that this kind of finish was duplicated before. And so I think that when you really put that in perspective and think about how much effort and how much work Robin has been putting in, and we've been seeing that too. It's like it's become part of a stream, joining Team Liquid, talking about all the time dedicated to TFT. It's so hard to witness something like this. And then it just actually happened. Like this is probably just one of the absolute peaks of TFT in general, let alone of NA.
Okay. Like it. Solid early thesis here in discussion. Robin?
Okay, what is this question asking? Like, is it asking about my performance, or is it asking about like if this TFT tournament was like has like the strongest players?
It's level of play, right? Because when we talk about how strong players are, you're taking about their average play, but we're talking about the performance, like whether or not this was very high, like the highest level of execution and play, and like players were, it's like just making it very, very intense. Would you agree with this being the highest quality of play that we've seen in any tournament?
I mean, I got 5 firsts. I can't say any TFT tournament thus far because I didn't watch EU regionals. I didn't watch KR regionals, and then we don't get to watch China regionals. So I didn't watch any regionals from any other region. So I can't really say it was I don't know. Can I do like a both or like?
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't even say it because I didn't watch the other regionals, so I don't know how high level of play there was. But our regional was actually very, very, I would say, very high level of play. All 8 players were super, like all 16 players were super strong, and I feel like a lot of them were also like pretty like veterans. Like no one's like that wasn't like their first regional, so I don't think anyone was that nervous. I feel like, so I think a lot of people played very, very optimally. So I do think, I mean, as far as like any NA tournament thus far, I would say yes. I would say agree. As far as like every other region, I don't know because I didn't watch theirs.
Okay, fair enough. So I like what Robin said. I think in terms of pound for pound, this was probably the most stacked tournament I've ever watched just because I know the quality of each player. Even the worst players on paper, like Musil and Voidsins, gave everybody a run for their money, right? Like Musil almost qualified, was in top 8, and then just dropped out because of that last performance in Game 6 on day 1. And then Johnny like did a really good job on day 2, like was kind of like there. I think there was a little bit of separation from him and the rest of the players in terms of like his performance. Like he ended up getting towards the bottom, but like definitely played well enough. And these are like our weakest players on paper in the tournament, right? And that's only just based off of experience and pedigree. Maybe technically they were like playing much better when it came that weekend. Because there are some players who looked a little lost. Some of them are in the chat. I feel comfortable saying it. Like, I never really thought players like Goobums was a real threat in that tournament, but he's a very high quality player in general. But like by his own admission, he wasn't exactly like at peak Goobums potential compared to some others. So I think overall, like the quality of players was like super good. Well, and here's another thing too. I personally believe that TFT quality play is just increasing. There's just more information. Players are learning, are more experienced. Players are taking preparation much more seriously, right? Like the fact that the players were scrimming and they were trying hard. It wasn't like no players walked into regionals and just said it was for fun. So by the nature of the fact that competition is just ramping up, every single tournament, I think in every single progressing set is just going to get higher level of play. And so I believe this is already just by the fact that like one of the top 3 highest levels plays of any TFT tournament. So I personally believe it is, but I also would not be surprised to see China like beat that the next week. So I think overall I was very impressed. There were some mistakes, like make no doubt about it, but like overall the quality of play was great, and I really enjoyed watching it. I'm not trying to flame Goobums. Everyone's in chat thinking like I'm flaming Goobums. I'm just using him as an example. Not every player was in top peak form.
He himself knows that he wasn't in peak form. Like compare this Goobums to like set 4 Goobums or like set or last set Goobums, it's totally different. So
yeah,
I'm never selling my Goobum stock.
Set 6 Goobums. Okay, by the way, Esports Law Bryce is like the biggest Ramkev fan on the planet. The biggest Goobums fan on the planet, or at least on the panel, is ThatsAdmirable. He loves Goobums to death. And so I don't have my front runner. Maybe I'll just pick Robin. Actually, I had picked Robin for my fantasy, so I'll have Robin be my guy. I'm president of the Robin fan club, at least on the caster desk for now. Chat agrees as well. It's an NA podcast with an NA chat with the NA winner. Did we expect any other result?
I do agree with how you said every set people are getting better, because I have a VOD on my Twitch where I reached rank 1 as mech my first time.
Right.
That was back in set 3. I rewatched the VOD, dude. Everyone was so bad. No one moved their boards. So I literally scouted. I put my Kaisa Jake on one side. They didn't move their board at all. I was like super shocked. I rewatched the VOD. I was like, wait, why is no one like moving their boards? Like nowadays, you can put it on one side. It's gonna be on the other side next time, right? And they ankle break and stuff like that. People didn't do that back in the set 3. So you can just watch that VOD and you can instantly tell that everyone got a lot better in TFT in set 3.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like going back and watching old like Hearthstone competition videos too. It's like why didn't we play that on turn 2? And it's like the best players in the world at the time were like, that's like, yeah, I just didn't understand tempo back then. And I'm like, oh gosh, we didn't. Oh my gosh, just so much changed over the course of such a short period of time.
Yeah,
and that definitely feels like where TFT's going right now. It feels like the pool is just constantly increasing in talent.
All right, that was a good question. Let's go ahead and move on to number 3. This one is in light of the recent bug to match history where you couldn't actually go on LOL chess, and players like Delicious Milk was very upset and tilted for weeks on end. Match history should be hidden from the public to prevent the game from being solved too quickly. Agree? Let's toss it over to Robinsongz.
I disagree. Dude, I was mauling so hard when match history was not working, because like I don't know. I guess we're just used to it, but I love searching match history of people and see what they're playing, see what things maybe they're doing something differently. Who's popping off recently, like who you have to study, right? I feel like TFT is a lot of studying too. So without match history, I feel like the game's gonna be so bland, and you don't even know what's going on, and but I was more mad about our own match history not working, because
you couldn't see your own games.
Yeah, I couldn't see my placements, and like I didn't know what I was playing every game and stuff like that. But if it was hidden from public, but you can still see it, I disagree. I feel like the game's not even being solved too quickly. It's like still being solved with match history in public. So I disagree.
Okay, fair enough. Very strong start. Nathan?
This is just one of the biggest disagrees I feel like I'm ever going to have with, like one of these kinds of questions like this. I don't even know where to start on this. Like, if it was just match history should be hidden from the public, maybe I agree. But to prevent the game from being solved too quickly, like, look, the game is not getting solved, okay? It's virtually impossible to play this game perfectly. And the idea that the game gets solved feels kind of ridiculous to me, because this means then you know what units you should be taking in what order every single time, that you know what items you should be building, you know if you should be holding items or combining them very quickly, you know if you should be attempting a win streak or a loss streak, you should know exactly where your board placement's going to be, you know exactly what your stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 champions are going to be. Like, there's just no way all of this stuff gets solved. To look at the final board and be like, this is the strongest one you can have, okay, sure, yeah, maybe that gets solved. But the whole process up to that point is, you know, still part of the game. That's like what the first 30 minutes of the game you spend is doing a lot of time, is, you know, getting to that end game point. Just because we can see what the final ones are, it doesn't mean the game's getting solved at all. So this, to me, this is a big disagree, because I think that knowing what the destinations are is you know, that's one of the fun parts of the game, and then figuring out what the paths are, like, that's the puzzle part of the game. And so how do you actually get to that point? To me, that's like the whole skill of TFT, is how do you actually take advantage of the resources you're given to get to those final points.
Okay. So Nathan, you would have maybe agreed if it was just the top half, but the bottom half is what really gets you.
That bottom half, big thumbs down from me.
I think that's exactly where I lay as well. It's not that I think the game being solved too quickly is the issue here whatsoever. In fact, if I could go on a small little tangent here, I think people put too much stock into match history and just like use that to explain everything, and they are just drawing the wrong conclusions almost every single time. I think one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of hard stuck low masters players is that they just look at match history and assume that they can understand exactly what happened, when there's a lot more to draw out of a match history. And that's actually a skill in itself. Data interpretation. I can tell so many people failed their statistics class or never even took stats whatsoever, or maybe didn't even just, you know, didn't even take math courses at all, because you just like understand what data means, and a lot of them aren't able to do it. We actually had a discussion on previous podcast episodes on what actually is meaningful data to interpret, and I'd love a deeper dive on it from people who are actually well versed in it. We don't have that right now, but it's a different topic for a different day. That being said, should it be hidden from the public? I would like, as a caveat to this, I would like an option for top players to hide their history. It's a completely optional thing. I think by default, it's public. But when it comes time to prepare for like scrims and normals and stuff like that, if you had the option to hide it from your history, I think that would be huge for the game, for competitively. But that's only, you know, basically catering to like the 0.0001%. And so it's not like a huge priority. But if we were to hide match history, I think it should be completely optional. And it's only for players to opt into it, because I personally believe that match history being public is a great thing for the game. It helps a lot of players connect to like what's happening, and they kind of immerse themselves in all the guides and stuff like that. So I think it's a very positive thing, ultimately helping a lot of players. Plus, if you think TFT players are bad now, imagine what match history and like watching streamers and parroting Soju and Robin. Like, it's really bad already. Can you imagine what it'd be like if we didn't have any like facts to try and counter these kinds of things that they're just throwing out on a daily basis on their stream? Oh my god. Disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the point when you said match history doesn't tell anything. That's why I don't do LoL chess reviews, because like, dude, LoL chess reviews are so pointless. Like, you look at the comp, you're like, oh, you should have made this item. This item sucks on Lucian. Why'd you make it? But it's like, that's not how the game works, you know? Like, sometimes you're forced to slam that item on Lucian, or like, oh, why'd you play, you know, this unit's better than this unit on this comp. Why does your match history have this unit? It's like, I didn't hit the other unit, you know? Like, so it's like LoL chess reviews are so pointless. Yeah. Like, it's like, it doesn't show, it's like a journey. It's like a marathon, right? When you're playing TFT, it only shows the ending, and you don't even know this journey you took to get there. And so yeah, that's to my viewers, that's why I don't do LoL chess reviews. Stop asking for LoL chess reviews.
Okay.
It's actually pointless.
I think that's the beauty LoL chess review right there, is you just parody it the whole time. You'd be like, why don't you just have a bunch of 2-star 5-cost legendaries in play? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Just every single time. And charge some absurd amount of your channel points for it too. Just make it the worst.
I think what it is Robinsongz fans have a humiliation fetish, and they just really want you to embarrass them on broadcast. So.
Oh, true.
I think you should lean into it. Give the people what they want.
Yeah, all right, I'm activating LoL chess reviews, but I'm just gonna make fun of them.
All right, let's go on and move on to the last agree. Such a fun segment. This one's a little heavy, so we'll see. We have a big enough sample size of TFT tournaments to definitively say some players are only ladder gods and simply do not perform well in tournaments. I want Nathan to go first for here.
I mean, my gosh, this is kind of like the inverse of the other one, where it's like we have a big enough sample size of TFT tournaments, and just right there, I already have a hard disagree. And then it's to say that some players are simply ladder gods and don't perform well in tournaments. Like, no, I don't agree with this. And there's so many different angles I can disagree on this from. So I'll pick the one that jumps out into my head mostly, which is I have been following competitive gaming again my whole life, and in 7 years of casting full time, like actually being on a camera, and that's what I did. I saw players just continuously grow and develop constantly over time. And there's one player that comes to my mind whose name was Muzzy. And he was just known as the ladder god for so long. And it took him forever to start having strong tournament finishes. But then at some point, Muzzy just started kind of dominating everything. And he just became one of the strongest players in the world. And like now he was a legend in that game. He was just one of the strongest ones you could possibly see. And it was for years. He just pretty much his performances were always top 10 on ladder, rinse repeat every single season. It was top 10 on ladder. He just wasn't having the tournament finishes. But that's just part of the way that variant strategy works, is that sometimes it's just not going to be your day. And that to me is one of the exciting points about the tournaments, is really just anyone can win when we step up to that point. But the real point of this is we're not even close to the large enough sample size of TFT games to make these kind of claims at all. And then we also just don't know the players. I think their personal lives well enough to be following this at all. Like, how much are they playing on ladder versus how much time do they have to prep into a tournament? Maybe, real life obstacles can get in the way and stuff like that too. It's just this one, I feel like it would almost be impossible for me to agree with at almost any stage of the game, just because it's such a decisive statement for something that I just don't feel like is a very realistic claim to be making for anybody.
Okay, that's a very reasonable and level-headed take. Robin.
I disagree, and solely because of one reason. There is not a big enough sample size for TFT tournaments that actually matter. Okay, we have a lot of TFT tournaments, but most of them do not matter to these top players. Okay, so like the only TFT tournaments that matter is regionals. Literally, the dual tourney doesn't really matter. The Challenger series don't really matter. The people who are in snapshots, they don't really care about the Challenger series. They don't care about MSI. They don't care about Dawnbringer and Nightbringer. Like, they're not gonna try their best, and they're gonna kind of fool around maybe. The only tournament that matters is regionals, and right now we've only had like 3. So I would say there's not a big enough sample size to say who is a ladder god and who is a tournament player. I do think that there are players who are good in tournaments, and there are also some players who are good in there are some players who are good in tournaments and some who are not that good in tournaments, whether it be their nerves or playstyle. But as far as like sample size, I don't think there's enough. Like an example is like Nubao, right? Like people say Nubao is like a ladder warrior and he doesn't perform well in tournaments, but I don't think the sample size is big enough, because there's one tournament that actually mattered to him, right? Which is regionals. He played it. He didn't perform on an MSI. Who cares? It doesn't matter to him. He didn't perform in Challenger series. Doesn't really matter to him either. He didn't perform well in Nightbringer. That didn't matter to him as well. So like the only tournaments that matter to him is regionals, and I think he's only competed in 2 of them so far, right? Like last set and this set. So I don't think that's big enough sample size to say who is a ladder god and who is a tournament god. Like as Soju too. Like people are saying Soju's a ladder warrior the entire set. I've been telling people like Soju's actually good when he wants to try. Like 8875, it's in a tournament that doesn't even matter to him, and people forget last set he had the most tournament points. So like, how is he a bad tournament player? He was number 1 in tournament points. So like those tournaments mattered last set, right? Like the qualifiers, those mattered. So he tried those, and he tried in this one too, and he did pretty well in this one. So yeah, I disagree.
Yep, just to follow up on Robin's point, so he's actually one of the highest performing tournament players in NA, consistently. Actually, in both tournaments that matter and for fun tournaments, as Robin is kind of quoting at this point, because like he's saying that not everything has mattered nearly to the extent as regionals. Because Soju, of course, won Twitch Rivals, for example. Which, by the way, to also add on to Robin's point, because I disagree with this as well, Nubao did perform really well in the Twitch Rivals tournament when there's a lot of money on the line, and he was basically nailing first. Nathan casted that tournament, I believe.
Yeah.
So there are players who can perform well in tournaments. Actually, just to use this opportunity, Robin, do you think who are some players that you think like perform exceptionally well in tournaments that don't perform on ladder? Can you name a couple?
Oh yeah, preset 5.5 Ramkev,
Oh yeah,
preset 5.5 Pokegom. I mean, they're high ranked now, but like they were not high ranked last time. They're pretty good. Um, I would say like I don't know, Ramblin. Like Ramblin's LP is not that high, but he's way stronger than what his LP says. Um, but I would say like there's usually a good correlation between LP and strength of a player. I can't think of anyone else that's like low LP and like a good in tourneys besides like Ramkev, Pokegom. But like now Ramkev's rank 1, Pokegom's like was rank 2 before, so like no one. I guess
it's funny you say
Krum is
Kurum?
Krum's like low LP, but he's really good in tourneys. He like pops off in tourneys, so
He is.
Can we define low LP real quick?
Yeah, it's funny
well-
because you said Ramblin's low LP. He's actually like rank 17 right now with like.
yeah, I mean high LP as in like top 10.
I
Like,
see. I see.
Low top 10 is like I would say it's like I mean it's
Low
not low LP, but I feel like
Yeah.
it's like low LP. I mean no, Ramlin's not low LP, but rank 17 is low for him. He should be top 2.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Alright.
relative to the strength of the player.
it's
And,
true. It's true.
and Ramblin he is not ranked 17 in how good he is. So that's low for him.
I see. It's a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay. I was interpreting this
Outside.
very differently. I was like, wait a second. I mean, are we calling like 1,000 LP low here? Like this is like I
No,
mean, I know
no.
that y'all
Like
are
low,
crushing
like
it, but
yeah, like Ramblin is not he's ranked 17 right now, but his skill level he should be a top 5.
Wow.
okay, I get it.
Yeah. So anyone below top 10, low LP, basic at 13, 1400 LP, he's low LP.
Oh, Basic
Ramblin,
super low, man.
17, he's low LP.
Basic is hard stuck in NA because you know. You guys
Oh,
know.
well, it's the hardest region, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Socks,
everybody knows
rank
that.
20, low LP. DQA, 23, low LP. Wow, the list just goes on and on and on.
Oh, DQ,
This is
that
nuts.
23 is actually high for DQA. So,
Woo!
no, I'm just kidding.
Damn. Soju. Oh, Soju's actually really low. He does not care at all. Okay. All right, let's not go talking about people's low chess rank right now. That was fun. Thank you for walking with me on that journey, Robin, Nathan,
Yep.
and everybody else. Chad also disagrees. Looks like we got disagrees almost across the board, except for question number 2. But that was a really fun segment. Let's go ahead and hop onto the esports portion. We talked a little bit about regionals. We also had a tournament that happened right before that, which was the duos. Robin, back-to-back tournament wins, and you're telling me in some ways this felt like also like really special because helping Ramblin get that win. You've been interviewed about a lot, so we don't have to spend too much time on it. Just some closing thoughts on what it's like taking the dub with Ramblin there.
It felt great that we were the favorites to win, and we were the favorites to win, and we proved them right in an RNG game.
Yeah,
So felt really great. Even though like we are like probably the strongest because we have like 2 like top 5 LP players. But there were also a lot of strong teams. Like Nubao and DQA were actually like probably in like they're pretty like peak form ish. And then Spicy Apples and GV8 is also 2 very strong teams. They're not that much worse than me and Ramblin. Like they're pretty even, I would say. But it's good to prove everyone right and getting Ramblin his a big tourney win. I actually didn't even think about that. Like I didn't even think about like a lot of people say like, oh, it's this is really especially good for Ramblin because like he missed out regionals, and like I totally forgot that he was in regionals last year and he got like what 4th, 5th, like he barely missed it to Worlds. And he didn't make it to regionals this set, so it's very it's great for him that he took home a tournament win. This is a pretty big tournament too. Like it's not like a small tournament, and like a lot of actually like most of the strong players are in it. So yeah, I feel great.
Right. Nathan, do you have any final comments on GiantSlayer series?
Yeah, this is like kind of like a generic thing that I'm going to be visiting here, but I really feel like that with a double win, it certainly should start to highlight the idea of like, oh, this is an RNG game, and it's like, well, maybe there's something that a lot of the RNG that you're missing, like you're not paying attention to it, or you're just not taking advantage of something like pretty well. This is a variance strategy game. There's going to be times where stuff looks ridiculous. There's going to be times when players just get lucky. But for the most part, you have to be prepared for all of these circumstances. And I think that one of the big things that comes to my mind is, kind of highlighting Ramblin here specifically, is that sometimes the strongest players just don't have opportunities to open up for wins or for qualifications or whatever it's going to be, because the opportunities just are not presented themselves, or they're not taken advantage of properly. And that's just part of the hard, skills of this game. When you look at the players who finished in 8th place, in 7th place in day 2 of regionals, it feels kind of weird to finish in 8th and 7th place and then call it, still a pretty special win, because you kind of just got stomped the whole day, and that was it kind of just, it looked weird and it felt bad afterwards. But you still made it to day 2. Like, you still got to 8th or 7th place in that spot. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but at a certain point you really have to look at this and just be like, players who are qualifying for these tournaments that are difficult to qualify for, just already that's a special mark. And the more of those that you have stamped onto a tournament resume, the stronger that tournament resume is going to look. Top 8 is very strong. Qualification tournament, just being able to participate, is very strong. And I think it's only a matter of time until we start highlighting these things and just really start to expect wins from players. Like, when are they actually going to get the win? Because that's what they're chasing down this whole time. A bunch of top 8s is that's just a strong player.
I wonder if we should have more regionals. Maybe not just the 0.5 of sets, but maybe like set 5 should have one, set 4 should have one. We'll see. I mean, maybe that's another agreed question for the next show. There you go. We're actually brainstorming ideas for the next episode. There you go. All right, let's go ahead and move on and talk a little about the regional finals. Of course, it was about Robinsongz. I'm actually surprised they just used the same little legend icon for all 3. Real good to differentiate the personalities here. Delicious Milk and Spencer. Here's a question for you, Robin. Out of the 3 players here you see on screen, who played the best this weekend?
Milk by far. Like, okay, people say this is an Origin game. Dude, Milk was like Sox last year. Like, no matter what, there's like a clear skill gap between like Sox and everyone else. This tournament, there was a skill gap between Milk and everyone else. Milk got tied for first day 1, and in day 2 he got second. He would have got first if I didn't like super high roll, right? So like, Milk is by far I would say, not by far, but like he's probably the strongest player in NA in my opinion. And it's all about consistency, right? Like, so like, I think Milk was gonna make it no matter what hand he was dealt. So like, people saying this game is RNG, it's not. I'm pretty sure Milk would have made it out no matter what roles he got, because he's just like, he's peak form Milk.
Peak form Milk.
And then Spencer's also really good. Like, the Spencer is, yeah, don't talk. Spencer is a super turny sweat. Like, he got what? He barely made it. He didn't even make it through snapshots, right? He barely made it through MSI. And then I think he popped off every day of the tournament too. So I didn't really watch Spencer's VODs or Milk's VODs. But I don't think any one of us 3 lucked our way into top 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any other players outside of that you thought played exceptionally well? I think people, for example, noted multiple times, both in the chat and on broadcast, like how well Soju played. Any comments on other people like, Voidsins or Kurum, who also made it to day 2, Setsuko, who also like came so close but narrowly missed?
I would say Soju. Soju definitely performed better than I thought he was gonna perform. I watched Soju streams a lot, and I knew he was actually. I've been telling everyone, like, Soju's in peak form. Like, all the fantasy drafts, they draft Soju second to last, but before Mayusel, and I was like, dude, what are you guys doing? Like, that's actually a steal. Like, you guys are letting the memes take over your like, just watch him play, and you'll know that he's actually like in peak form. So like, I think Soju making it to the final lobby wasn't a surprise. So I think he played particularly pretty well. I miss Voidsins as well. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Voidsins. I played with him a lot in solo queue, and he was always like topping the lobby. So I already knew like he was pretty strong. He just like played on his Johnny Sins account, so no one knew who he was. And then he popped back to Voidsins during the tournament, and then people think, oh, how did a master player make it to this thing? But like, he was like top 10 or ranked 20 at one point. Besides that, I would say everyone performed like how they should. I think Setsuko was already like one of the favorites to win. So I don't think he underperformed or overperformed. He got to the last lobby. I think I think Bertosaurus kind of like underperformed. I don't know if he laureled or not, but I think he was one of the favorites as well. Because he almost like dethroned me and Ramblin solo. Not saying his partner's bad, but like he racked up so many points in the dual tourney. It super clicked for him for this set. But I'm not sure why he did so poorly. I didn't watch his VODs. Maybe he laureled, but I think Bert kind of underperformed. But yeah, that's it for me.
How can you say that Soju is in peak form and then say that he performed better than you expected to? You're saying that Soju found a way to ascend in tournament?
Okay, so like even Soji at peak form, I didn't expect him to make the last lobby.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
him
I
making it to
see.
last
I
lobby
see.
was
The
a
high roll.
not a high roll, but like he overperformed, in my opinion. Like no flame.
Wow!
Wow, that's like saying someone strong is gonna get better.
Yeah,
I love that.
All right. That's all I really wanted. We can move on from this segment finally. Let's go into a world's tier list, shall we? This is where we're gonna ask Robin, based on the available players that have qualified. We don't have everything yet. I believe China and Brazil, for example, don't have their players yet. But from the current existing player list, let's go ahead and rank them according to strength. So we have EU, Korea, Oceania, LATAM, and Japan thus far for a total of, I think, 11 players. Or is it 14? I'm not entirely sure how much we
I
have.
need to look at the. Wait, am I ranking the players or the region?
Ideally, we can actually do both if you want. Do you want to do regions first?
Okay, I'm down for regions.
Okay, let's do regions. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 regions. So you can start off at the bottom or the top of the list. It's up to you.
Okay, number 1, NA. We're the
Easy.
strongest. Everyone comes over to our region to do boot camp, the hardest region. So you already know we're the strongest favorites to win. Milk, right?
True.
Milk Spencer, you got me.
You're ready. It's 1, 2, 3 angle.
Yeah, number 1 NA. Number 2, I would say it's EU West. EU West is super strong. I watched the regionals a little bit. Their players are super strong, and I would say they're number 2. I didn't get to watch. Okay, so I have no idea Japan, Brazil, China, Latin America. I don't know anything about their players, so I don't know. But I'm gonna base this off like previous Worlds performance and like overall like consensus. I would say number 3 is probably gonna be Korea. Number 4 is gonna be. Number 4, I would say, is probably China. Number 5, I would say. Number 5 is going to be. I would say Brazil. Brazil's
Okay.
actually like low key good. I feel like, not even low key. Like, I think they performed well both worlds. Number 6, I'm gonna go with Japan. Number 7, I'm gonna go with Latin America, and then number 8 we have Esha, dead last. Esha's so
It's
free.
just what
Not even the region, just Esha.
just Esha, who is the entire Oceania player base. It's an 8th.
Yeah. Esha's so free. Okay, I'm cursing myself right now. Esha's gonna outplace me, but like, yeah, no, I don't think Esha's free. Esha's actually pretty strong, but I would say like OC and Latin America are probably tied. I would say.
They're holding hands in 7th and 8th. That's all that.
Yeah.
How big of a gap do you think there is between the top and the bottom? like let's say the elo gap right now is the top 10 ladder, and then if you're below the top 10, like that's the low elo point. Like how low is the elo at 8 versus the high elo at 1?
The Latin American players and OCE player Esha came to have accounts in NA, and they're only at like 1,000 to 800 LP. I don't know if they're hard stuck or they just didn't play enough games or it's like lag diff, but that kind of shows like where their power levels are at, in my opinion. They may be stronger, for sure, but I think Esha and then the El Tomo and Mbappe from Latin America are like 800 to 1,000 LP in NA, and it's not like they only play like 10 games, I think. So if NA is like 1,600 LP, I would say that like 1,000 LP, but like they are. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. Japan, Brazil, and China and Korea, I have no idea how strong they are.
Interesting. People are saying
Uh,
it's a ping diff or like
yeah,
it's
ping
a
diff, ping diff.
lag.
That's what I'm saying. Ping diff. Yeah.
Hey, question. Do we know how Worlds is being played? If it's all remote and we're not doing an offline finals, is there like a home server everyone's playing? Like, are we playing on the China server as if we were honoring the fact that we were supposed to be there? Do we know that at all? Or is it all on NA? If so, I'm kind of down to to have it all on NA and continue to ego people outside this region. Which, by the way, I love that Robin, when it comes to NA, most humble guy out there. When it comes to outside of NA, this guy is egoing everybody. Doesn't even know how strong the other regions are because it's not on his radar.
Oop. Or no.
Yeah.
But like ping diff actually matters though. Like it actually matters a lot in like top tournament play. Every little mistake matters. It can cost you 1 to 2 placements. And people are saying, "Oh, there's no difference. There's no difference to the ping. Like TFT, you don't need reaction." Like, no. Like, there's actually a diff. I played in EU West, and like, like, I mean, like, if you're playing solo queue, there's probably no diff because there's like thousands of games. But if you're playing in a tournament through 6 games, and then because of the ping, you couldn't Zephyr cheese or you couldn't swap sides and stuff like that. It definitely matters. So yeah.
Okay. Question to you, Robin. Do you want to actually rank the players or you just want to stop at the tier list here? It's your tier list. So I'm happy to do all the 11 players as well. I already know who's number 11.
I'll do it real quick. 11 Esha, okay. And then 11 Esha, and then 1, 2, 3. I would say number 1 Milk, number 2 me, number 3 Spencer, and then number 4.
Can you slow down just a little bit so our producer
1 Milk
can keep up?
2 Robin, 3 Spencer.
Gap, obviously.
3 Spencer. And then 11 Esha. Put on the bottom. And then
everything else is tie.
Okay, so number 4 is gonna be I would say number 4 is Shurikane, aka Polish Machine. That's his nickname. He's a beast. Number 5 I would say is ACKK. I was gonna rank him lower, but he's currently rank 1 right now, so he's probably a beast. And then number 6 is, I would say, Scipius. Scipius is also beast. Number 7 is Gluteus Maximus. And then after that, I have no idea who the players are. So
randomize the Korean and LATAM players and Japanese players. Is what Robin says.
Yeah.
But we can all agree Esha is 11th, right?
Yeah. Number 4 is Shurikane.
I'm wondering where the Shurikane nickname came from. That sounds like a great story.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll let the producer type it out. That way some people can clip it and screenshot it and share it around, stir up the drama. So how much do you know about any of these Korean players? Woojung, Dudu, and Xenia. Do you know anything about them?
I read an article about them. But besides that, I don't know anything about them. The only Korean player I know is Bobe, who didn't make it, and I don't know this guy named Strong Sexy, because like his name pops out, and I search Meta TFT a lot, and then Strong Sexy is always like Strong Sexy. I feel like he's kind of like me. Like he one tricks comps a lot because he shows up on Meta TFT a lot, and he also he figures out what comp is strong and he one tricks it. So I think he was the first one to one trick Vel'Koz A-bomb back in the day, and then I don't know what he's playing right now, like probably Lucian or whatever. But yeah, I know him, but he didn't make it either. But I think they both made it to finals, Bobe and Strong Sexy. But as well as Woojung, Dudu, and Xenia, I have no idea.
All right. Well, I think this is where we're just going to leave off the list because 5 to 10, in the words of Robin, do not really matter. Well, I guess it's 7 to 10 because I think he ranked all the EU players. Let's go ahead and go to the mailbag and giveaway section. Unless they want to finish typing it out, but I think we're ready to move on just because I don't want to stall here for 2 minutes. Poor producers. So this one's from Tectonic. Congrats on the win, Robin. Do you think your current playstyle, if unchanged from now into Worlds, would be a positive or negative going into the playstyles of the other regions?
I would say it's a positive because I feel like other regions are pretty aggressive, and I play pretty aggressive. I roll at level 6 a lot. I roll at level 7 a lot, so I think I can keep up with the tempo. So I think it's actually a positive because I know Korea and China play more aggressively, and I kind of like I feel like I improved as a player by watching Bebe and like other like Asian aggressive players, and I kind of adapted that into my own gameplay. So like, you know, if I'm on a win streak, I level up and I roll. Like at 3-1, if I'm on a 5 streak, I level up and I roll. I never used to do that. I think I learned that from like New Bao or Bebe, whatever. But I level up 3-1, roll down pretty hard, 0 gold if even. 3-2 if I have pairs or if I need to make my board stronger, I roll down. So I try to my playstyle is like I try to have be strong every stage of the game, besides stage 2 because you can't control that. But stage 3 onwards, I try to be strong. And that's why like I don't really get a lot of firsts usually, but I think it is a positive into other regions, into
That's
worlds.
great. I forgot to mention, by the way, right before this, and we'll resume the Q&A, maybe get Nathan's thought on what Robin just said. We're also doing a giveaway live on the show in the chat. I don't really host this position, it's usually Doa, so I apologize for missing this. Type a question right now in the Twitch chat directed to Robin. We'll pick some of them for Robin to look at, and then Robin will pick one to be the winner of the giveaway, which I believe is just $10. So if you want to make 10 quick bucks, maybe buy the next battle pass or something with it, type in the questions in the chat.
Hang on, I gotta type a question real quick.
I actually did a prediction contest, by the way, for the top 3 of regionals, and saying that I would buy a battle pass, which is basically like, you know, $10 or so. And no one won, but a lot of people came very close. A lot of people picked like Robin and Milk +1, or like there was Milk predicting himself and Spencer, but didn't predict you, Robin. He picked
Well, no one
Soju.
won. That's crazy.
No one won, but a couple of people got really close. Funny enough, the people that got the closest in the prediction contest in there were like known members of the community, like Solus, Milk, a couple other people. It was really funny. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that these guys almost won. All right, Nathan, do you notice any other playstyles in other regions? Have you had a chance to like study that at all, or just kind of talk about that for a second while we solve for questions?
I watch way too much games because I love doing that. And it helps me analyze stuff. You know, seeing lots of different kinds of playstyles and having to understand them as well. Like it's a difficult thing. Like I can't emulate all these playstyles because they're seeing things differently than I can. But my goal is to be able to see what they do and then explain, you know, what that process is and things that highlighted that and key moments of like actually building to that point. And I definitely feel like Europe is probably one of the most interesting ones I've seen because it just feels like the styles are so mixed and that players like tend to really aggressively change things at times. Like sometimes they're just super greedy and sometimes they're just not greedy at all and they're very aggressive. And you know, Fluffy's like one of the players that came to my head for that, where it's just like I feel like his style changes like every single game. And sometimes he hits a stride and he just starts crushing everybody. And then sometimes I'm kind of watching it and I'm like, I can't figure out what he's doing. It just feels like Europe players are very common with that kind of regard. And so I think that like just strong fundamental play probably is one of the strongest ways to go against that because it's hard to counteract somebody who's changing up what they do all the time. Really, the idea would just be strong all the time, like strong every single stage. That sounds like probably one of the best ways to be good against it. And honestly, I just feel like this strong at every single stage of the game thing, well, from what we're seeing so far, it just seems like one of the strongest things you can do in general. Like why lose rounds? Is like that's the question that comes to my head. I'm like, oh, taking damage seems bad, so don't. Just feels like a great way to play the game.
For sure. I think Fluffy in particular is a pretty interesting player that you bring up because I agree with that. We do have a second question, by the way, for the initial question mailbag giveaway. It's from Dino Dan. It says, with the sample size of only 6 games in the finals, of course, there's going to be some variance involved. However, who else do you think can replicate your results if they got that same variance? I think Robin kind of answered this a little bit before by saying like some of the other players he thought played exceptionally well, but is there any other players that you want to highlight here?
Okay, so the thing is, I don't know anyone else. Okay, probably Milk. Because I was going to say, like, with my variants, right? I had pretty high roll Jax and Lucian games. Mainly Jax, I would say. And I don't know any other player who plays a lot of Jax besides, I think, Milk. I think Milk played a lot of Jax in day 1. And I think when we were playing solo queue, I see him playing a lot of Jax. So I would say probably Milk. If he got the same RNG as me, he probably also get like 1-1-1 stuff like that. But like, you know, the Yasuo game, I don't know if Milk plays Yasuo or if he was willing to play, if anyone else in the tourney was willing to play Yasuo. So I don't know about that one. The Kale game, I think anyone who played that game would have got first. So I would say the answer to this is probably Milk. Yeah.
I don't know if Milk agrees with you, but it's funny because he just responded immediately to you in chat. So then again, I think Milk is afraid to curse himself. He's been very upset listening to Robin rank things and talk about Milk in particular. So it could be just all part of the pre-tournament mental mind games. We do want to say our giveaway winner was to Tectonic. Thank you for the question, Tech. And now it's time for Robin to select a chat winner. There's some questions that were suggested in our Discord channel. If you want to look, Robin, you can also pick something just straight up from the chat if you want as well. It's your choice.
Okay. I only one question, right?
Yeah, just pick any question. It could be the first one that you think is remotely interesting. It could be win trading. You can pick your friend who's asked a question and just give him $10. It's
okay, Trickster07, he asked, Robin, what do you think is the biggest difference with high-level players and Hearthstone Master players? I get this question asked a lot in my streams. The answer is everything. And you probably don't want to hear that answer, but it's literally everything, okay? I've coached a lot of people, and usually they're like low masters, diamond, plat, and every player has their strengths and weaknesses, right? So you can't. It's hard to answer this question, but it's like everything. So like, high level players, they'll probably roll faster than you. They have a better knowledge of all the comps. They itemize better than you. They scout better than you. They position better than you. They understand early, mid game, and late game more than you. They understand late game positioning. They understand when to roll. All of that will add up to like that LP differential, because it's like when you're playing solo queue, it's over like hundreds of games. So like even one little mistake that you make can be like, you know, one or two placements, which translates to about 20 to 30 LP lost over hundreds of games. That's like what, 300, 400 LP or something. So like, you know, it does depend on the player to player. As the margins decrease, like as like if you compare like masters to grandmasters and then grandmasters to challengers, and if you compare like 1,000 LP challenger to like top 10 challenger, top 10 challenger to like top 5 challenger, like the difference becomes smaller and smaller, but there are still going to be differences. You know, I have my strengths and weaknesses, and then you know, some players are definitely better than me at other things, but I'm better than them at other things and stuff like that. So yeah, the answer to this is it is everything, but in order to go more in depth, you'd have to like look at the player themselves and who you're comparing to. Yeah.
Yep. I still kind of stand by. I said this on broadcast. I think there's 5 major skills that apply to every TFT player. There's macro, which is of course your big picture, like what you can do. There's micro, which is like positioning. There's scouting, which is like also information processing. Like how are you scouting? Like, and that can also go into like preparation phase. There's I can't remember actually the fourth one. And the last one's like adaptation and improvisation and creativity. So like all these skills that Robin says, like it's impossible to actually be the best at all of them. But like some players are choosing to like slowly improve all of them in every category, and also to focus on one skill at a time. I think that a lot of hard-stuck Masters players think that there's one silver bullet to help you climb, and there isn't. You just have to slowly improve everything over time. And like even myself as a player that can't get past Grandmasters right now, still trying to work on breaking challenge. I think I will this set. I'm gonna try really hard because I can focus on TFT now. But I really like the answer that Robin gives and every challenger player gives. Just like, you gotta really think about it. You gotta change your mental. Also, I just want to say as another tip, if all you do is copy other players, you're gonna do the same thing but slightly worse, and you'll never actually outplace them. And remember, the players that you're copying are also the players you hope to jump over them in rankings, because ultimately, challenger is only a certain amount of spots. So start to also think about why critically from the spot that you are, as opposed to just copy paste everything.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, it's just excellently said. I mean, the answer is everything. Like it's a strategy game. There's not just one strategy. There are lots of strategies. Get better. Get player diff. Like that's the answer.
I want to add like I have a lot of viewers and also a lot of students who like they think that they watch me play and they're like, I'm not doing anything differently. Like why am I so much like worse or lower LP? But they don't notice like the small things that happen. Every small little thing that happens in a scale of hundreds of games, it becomes a lot of placements and a lot of LP. So like I recently came out with my stage 2 guide, how to play stage 2. Almost all the students I coach that are like below masters or masters, I asked them the first question. I asked them like, "Do you know what pre-leveling is?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "How often do you pre-level?" They're like, "Every game." I'm like, "Okay, this is why you're Hearthstone master, because in 90% of my games I don't pre-level, and you're playing the whole game wrong from the beginning, and then it's like, oh, who cares? It's just one little like one decision in the beginning of the game. Like, why does it matter?" But I've had a lot of sessions, and that one pre-level messes up their whole game. They're not able to upgrade their one cost units, and it just snowballs out of control. And then over hundreds of games, it's the difference between masters and grandmasters. So like, it's like these little things that they don't see themselves. So you know, don't try to just look at like the macro stuff. Like literally go into every single detail, because it matters.
It does. It does. Which was the category I missed, by the way. Macro, micro, scouting, knowledge, which is what Robin's talking about, and adaptation. These are like the 5 major skill categories, I believe, is what makes up a TFT player. And then all those like subcategories of like falls under it. Really interesting stuff, and I'd love a little bit more time, but I think we are out of it. So let's go ahead and get some final thoughts and words from everybody on the show, starting with our guest, Robin. You've been wonderful. Any final closing thoughts?
Shout out to all my viewers, all my supporters, for supporting me all the way. Shout out to my day ones who've been in my stream since I was averaging like 10 viewers. Seeing the growth that I had is awesome. I am ready to start training for Worlds. I'm this like Milk said, like he tweeted. You don't, even if you're the best player, you don't get the opportunity to play at Worlds often, even if you're the best, because of this high variance RNG game. So we're not going to take this for granted, and we're going to train really, really hard and perform at Worlds. So I'm ready.
Oh, I love it. I love the confidence, but I also love the determination to put in the effort to back it up. Nathan.
I just want to be so thankful to just the TFT community in general. Like it's just been so fantastic. So many times I've been pushed away from a game because I've just felt like the community just wasn't for me. This one, it just feels like everyone's embracing, everyone's trying to improve. There's tons of memes that are going around all the time, which I love. That just keeps me interested and engaged. I feel like there's so very little I could deliver criticism on from any aspect of it. It's just wow, what a fantastic freaking game that this has been, and just the community is building on top of that as well. And also, go Robin, go Milk, go Spencer. NA number 1, woo! Let's go Worlds!
Go!
That's right, Robin. Can we get
let's
red,
go!
white, and
blue.
Let's go! Easy!
Let's go! It's too free.
It's too free!
All right, I love it. I love how hyped Robin gets. Yeah, that's it from us, really. Make sure to check out the World Championships coming up. Also, GiantSlayer's putting on a fun show. If you love Teamfight Talkshow, let me tell you about an upcoming game show called First or Eighth. It's going to be featuring the first episode with Delicious Milk from, well, no team, Kiyun from TSMFTX, and Cloud9 K3 Soju. They're going to do some fun trivia stuff, I think, back and forth. I don't actually know the details of it, but I'm certainly going to tune in. So make sure to check that out. GiantSlayer's putting out even more content for all the TFT Degens out there. And if you don't know where or when exactly, just follow them here on this channel as well as Twitter. People ask, what are some ways to keep GiantSlayer, or rather some, TFT alive in North America? GiantSlayer's doing everything they can. Just by like following, interacting with like the tweets, does a lot because it helps get sponsors' attention and whatnot. So if you really love TFT, just like, and you don't have a lot of money, you don't have to sub, you don't have to like do anything crazy. Just like engage with us and follow everybody and whatnot. So appreciate that. And that does it for this episode. If you missed any part of it, we're going to post the VODs on YouTube and all of our other different streams and feeds. And Doa will be back for the next episode, I believe. So make sure, of course, to give him some love if you get a chance to come across him. So that does it for this episode of Teamfight Talk Show from Frodan, Admirable, and Robin. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for more TFT action.